One of the most influential factors in my running success was joining the local running groups in town. I started with the trail running group so I wouldn't get lost in the woods, and then I was convinced to start going to the Tuesday night track workouts. I was pretty intimidated the first time going. Would everyone be faster than me? Would I be able to handle the workout? I decided I had nothing to lose, so I showed up to the local running store and jogged with the group to the track. While some of the people stood around chatting, waiting for the workout to begin, others started doing some pretty strange looking exercises. Legs were swinging side to side and forwards and back. Grown men in tiny shorts were doing exaggerated skipping and hopping, and some people looked like they were practicing for a line dance, doing the grapevine back and forth. I gotta say, it all looked a little weird and silly, but then I thought, wait, should I start swinging and skipping too? Of course, now I know that all those pre-workout drills and routines have a specific purpose. Just jogging the 1.5 miles to the track is really not enough of a warm-up to optimize performance for a hard workout. Those weird, silly rituals do have specific benefits, not only for the workout you're about to do, but can impact your running fitness overall. Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and my mission is to help you improve your running, your mindset, and your life with science-backed training and plant-based nutrition. Today, I've invited on Dr. Owen Everard to get into the science of the warm-up. You'll learn what's going on inside our bodies as we warm up, what kinds of warm-ups should be done for what runs and races, and how a good warm-up routine can enhance not only the run you're about to do, but your overall running fitness as well. Owen is a physiotherapist with a PhD in biomechanics. He's also a sub-4 minute miler, a sub-14 minute 5K runner, and a 5-time Irish national champion in the 1500 and the 3000. He is the founder of Everard Pilates and has written a book called How to Get to the Line in the Best Shape Possible, which you can get for free on his website. Of course, we'll have all those links in our show notes since you're probably on the run right now. Owen really is a wealth of knowledge both as a scientist and a competitive masters runner. So if you are looking to level up your running, this conversation will have some really great ideas for you. Don't forget to stay tuned all the way to the end of the episode for another Mental Strength Minute where you can fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. I also want to mention that we've very quietly started a YouTube channel, of course, called The Planted Runner. I'll be filming every episode of the show from now on and posting them to the channel. So if you love video, please head to YouTube and subscribe. And for those of you watching me on YouTube right now, you're ahead of the curve. And now here's my conversation with Dr. Owen Everard. Welcome to The Planted Runner, Owen.
Claire, thanks so much for having me back. Really enjoyed our last conversation, so delighted to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we are going to dive down deep in the topic of warm-ups. So let's talk about the purpose of a warm-up. What exactly is going on in the body?
Yeah, I think it's similar to a diesel car now. We don't have any of them left, but it's that thing of warming up the engine before we're going for a drive. So there's several different reasons to warm up. One is the physical, to warm up your muscles, warm up the tendons and ligaments to kind of prepare them for the race. So if they're warmer, they have more elasticity in them, which then allows you to do the race with less chance of injury. The second reason would be like physiologically, to prepare the body for the systems it's going to use. So if you go from 0 to try go to race pace, it's a massive jump. So what you want to gradually increase the heart rate, get the lungs breathing a little bit heavier. And we'll talk about this, like one of the specific things that they found was if you add one little part to your warm-up that's not hard, it reduced the time for you to get up to your max VO2 max from 30 to 40 seconds to 6 seconds. Now that's mental, or that's a lot, because not only is it physiologically good, it'll also get us for the next one, which is mental preparation. So one, if it's taking you 40 seconds to get back up to the breathing rate that you should, well then like it's hard. It's easy to panic in a race when you're like, oh my God, I'm trying to catch my breath. We're running so hard. Whereas like if it only takes you 6 seconds to get into the swing of it, it's a lot easier. And then lastly is that mental preparation. You know, if it's a big race, if it's something you're unsure of, it's just great to have a kind of routine that you're used to doing that kind of gets you in the zone for the race. So those kind of the mental, the musculature to help prevent injury, and then the physiological responses will be the reasons that we would do a warm up.
Okay. Well, most people listening to the show are endurance runners, so we're not going up to our VO2 max, at least not until the very, very end of a race. So why would it be important that that whole process happens faster?
Well, again, while you're not going to go to your, say, max VO2, you are going up towards that percentage. So there is some percentage that you want to have that jump. And you said, what was it? The first mile is a liar, or what was that?
Yes, the first mile is a liar. Yeah, that's a phrase that I use all the time. Yeah, I mean, it basically means so many people go out for their run, and I'm not even talking about races, just, normal 3-5 mile run. And, oh, I feel terrible. I feel stiff. Something's off. And I say never judge your run on the first mile, because for the most part, most people are not really warming up, and that first mile is their warm up. So ignore everything that goes on in your body and your mind in the first mile and just see how you feel when that one is done.
Yeah, I actually love that advice, especially for a run. You are stiff, you're generally warming up. But if you are doing a marathon, you don't want it that 1 mile in. If you're preparing for this, probably specifically at least 12 weeks, if not 16. So, if I had, obviously I do sports Pilates. If I told you, well, look, the first week's not going to be great because we're going to ease into it. You're going to be like, here, you're paying for this course.
Right.
So it's the same. We want that all 26 miles are at a good standard. So by warming up, even for a marathon, it allows your body to get into race pace a lot easier and allows the muscles to adapt. Because as you said, we've all had it where we've started a run or even a workout where if we didn't have as much time, you do feel stiff. And that's fine because, if the workout, you can ease into it. But if it's an important race, it's important that you've given yourself the best chance so that you're starting well and then you can finish well. So that's why for the longer races, I know people think, oh, I'll ease into it. But if it's a big race, and most races are, like, they're kind of like times in our schedule that we're really trying to like peak. So, not preparing by doing like even 10 or 15 minutes of work beforehand is giving yourself a severe disadvantage.
Well, let's talk about the different kinds of warm-ups for the different kinds of races and runs. So the way you warm up for a marathon is not going to be the same as the way you would warm up for the 5K, and certainly not anything shorter than that. Would you agree?
Yeah, the structure will be the same. How much running you would do would be different. Obviously, say for 5Ks, for 5K runners, you still kind of want to keep up. 5K is only 3 miles, so you still want to keep up your mileage a little bit, even if it's an important race. So you'll generally do a 2 mile warm up and a 2 mile cool down. And I know some people will do more. With a marathon, you're doing 26 miles or a half marathon, so you might only run for like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. But it will all start with some kind of elevation of the heart rate. Actually, I tell a lie. If you're driving to a race, like many of us are, bring a lacrosse ball or a hockey ball or a foam roller. Say if you have sore knees, just before you even start, once you get out of the car, you'll have certain areas. I know for myself, my hips will be tight after being in the car. So I'll just try find an area somewhere where I'll just hockey ball my hips just for like 1 or 2 minutes, just ease out those tension spots, or I might just stretch my hip flexors. Then you're going to go into your warm up. And from I've ran from like 400 meters up to 10 miles is the longest I've done competitively. I've done like 50 minutes for 10 miles, but I've never done a half marathon or marathon. But I would recommend people do some sort of run there. Easy, like you're just running easy. People would be worried sometimes, well, I'm doing 26 miles, say if it's a marathon, and like I don't want to be doing extra mileage, but the pace you're doing is so slow. You're not burning like carbs here. You're only like burning into fats and then maybe a tiny bit of carbs. This is not going to affect the race performance at all. And as I said, in fact, we'll probably get more out of the first mile. We'll probably feel more relaxed, which allows us to get a better performance. So it's a jog initially, and then I would do some like static stretching. I know it's slightly, it's like maybe only holdings for like 10 seconds for the different muscle groups. Then I would do some potentiation. So I'll do some like high knees, some bum kicks, and some side to sides. That could be left out if you wanted for a marathon. I wouldn't necessarily leave it out. And I will do dynamic stretching on the way back, holding each spot. So like, bending the knees and stretching the calves after the high knees, hamstrings, and then quads, stretch my quads after I've done bum kicks. If you are doing bum kicks, keep the knees out in front rather than flick behind, because that just teaches you good running mechanics. So, in normal day-to-day, we've talked about before the importance of variation. This is just a good way to improve your running stride, nearly like by not even thinking about it or not even having to add something massive to your week, just by doing a couple of these drills. And then I would recommend everybody to do one stride about 10 minutes out. If it's a big race, could be 5 minutes out, one stride for 30 seconds at race pace. Now that will differ because 30 seconds at 5k pace is a lot faster than 30 seconds at marathon pace.
Sure.
But the idea being, you're essentially getting your breathing rate ready for the race that's going to occur.
I like
and then
that. I like
for
that.
the 5k, you'll do 2 or 3 shorter strides, and you might do some like jumping on the spot. So bringing like knees to your chest as you do some kind of pogo jumps, just to really kind of fire up that nervous system, because you're going to have to be running quicker. So for the 5k, you'll do some quicker strides. Even for 10k, you would do some quicker strides with like a walk back. Now, because remember, we don't want to be out of breath. Once the system is activated, it's easy to just go back up. So don't think you need to be coming in, doing a stride, going to the line. Try, once you've done that longer stride, 10 to 15 minutes out, now it should be more about like just relaxing, taking sips of my water, making sure I'm feeling comfortable. And if you're unsure on a warm-up, start earlier. And if you have to sit down, stretch your legs, that's fine. Once you've been warmed up, towards the end, you can just be kind of sitting around a little bit.
Okay. So part of the warm up is actually physically getting warm, getting all the blood and fluids moving faster through the body. And the other part of it is basically preparing your brain to talk to your legs, right?
Yes, that's called potentiation.
Yeah. Okay. You want to talk about that?
Well, you've actually summarized that really well, Claire. It's that idea of getting the nervous system in tune. So one part is physiological. It's like getting all the systems, like the heart, the lungs, like woken up, and essentially those, if you think of a factory, those things, like all the big engines moving and getting ready for production. And then the second thing is, as you said, the brain connected to the muscles to try start firing the muscles more, so that when you're doing it then in a race, they've already activated. And in the shorter distances, like a 5k or like a 10k, it is relatively fast. So doing one stride at race pace will get you your breathing heavy after like say 6 or 30 seconds. Just walk or jog back, take some water, you just make sure your shoes are tied. But then you want to do like 3 kind of like 100-meter strides or 70 to 100-meter strides after that, or the high knees as well. And what you're trying to do is like recruit more, they're called motor units. So you don't use 100% of your muscles, but we're trying to, let's just say for round numbers, recruit more of those muscle units. So say we recruit 90% of those, we'll only need 70% in a race. But because there's 90 recruited and we've kind of got that activation, when we start a race, then it doesn't actually feel as hard. So it allows us to kind of relax into the pace that we're meant to be running, much more than if we hadn't done anything. The gun goes, everybody goes off fast anyway. And it's easy to panic in a race. And as you said, it could be a mile in before you start really, your breathing settles, And even that nervousness of, oh my God, this is going to be a terrible race. I'm not, I'm not feeling good here.
Yeah. Yeah. The activation point, I think, is something that people don't grasp that concept. What do you mean my muscles aren't activated? I'm going for a run. I'm using my muscles. Of course they're activated. And then later on down the road, we get calf cramping, we get, wobbly form, we get all sorts of things happening. So, I love the way you described it. We're actually trying to activate individual fibers, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really well put. And I love the thing of like, it's that brain muscle connection. Like, obviously this is subconscious, but if you thought about it that way, you get the justification for doing this stuff.
Absolutely. Okay. I think it's pretty clear why we need to warm up for races. Lots going on for the races. But what about, my 3-mile run? Do I need to do anything before that? Can't I just go for a run?
I would probably say yes. Like time is a big issue. In our week, we really should probably have 3 things. We should have one kind of workout during the week, one workout depending on your schedule. If you have kids, Saturdays mightn't be great. So it might be like a Tuesday, Friday, long run Sunday, or maybe with work, Saturday and Sunday are good days. So we might have a workout Wednesday, workout Saturday, long run Sunday. For other runs and the long run, I would think, as you said, that first mile is a liar is a great thing. Take it that you're going to be feeling stiff and sore. Don't try force it. Just go out. Your first mile might be slower. It's funny. I know with Kenyans, my friend has just come back, and like real elite Kenyan athletes, they will cut a run short and cut a workout short if the mile beforehand is slower than if the mile they do now is slower than the mile they had previously done. So he was doing a workout. It was like 8 by a K. They went way too quick on the first 2Ks, 2 by a K. They, say for rough numbers, they were trying to go 3 minutes. It was quicker than that, but 3 minutes, they went say 250 and 250. And then the next one, they were like struggling. They hit like 249. The next one, they hit 254, and then session was done because they're like, well, look, the form is gone. So don't try force that going out the door of your easy runs. You let your body release. Like the key for any running is consistency. So you might feel like, well, I'm not getting the benefit of the first half mile. Look, if you get 3 miles because you've warmed up correctly, and then you can go out for another 3-mile run or a 4-mile run, over time, that's going to work out so much better than trying to force from the start a pace that doesn't feel right.
Hey everyone, we will get back to our conversation in just a moment. Have you noticed that the Planted Runner is completely ad-free? I don't know if I can stay that way forever, but how cool would it be if I could? This podcast is made possible by the athletes that choose to work with me as their coach, and by those who purchase custom training plans from me. So if you get value from the work I do here on the Planted Runner, why not take it to the next level with a custom training plan for your next race, made just for you by me. My plans include all your running, strength, mobility, and more. You'll also get access to my exclusive mental strength course, along with training and nutrition tips. You can choose an 8-week strength or speed session if you're in between races, or get a full 14-week marathon plan for your next race. It's truly custom, so it's really up to you. Prices will be going up at the end of the year, so get yours early at theplantedrunner.com/plans. That's theplantedrunner.com/plans. One thing that I wanted to admit to everybody is, when I was doing some super long runs, what I would often do, because I don't really like warming up, I'll just say it. So what I would do was go out for my run, and there was a nice spot about 1.5 miles away from my house. And I would stop at 1.5 miles because I felt pretty good by then. And then I would be doing some leg swings, some drills, and then go for the rest of my run, because I just couldn't be bothered to be doing it at my house. And I also don't like the cold. So I don't like standing outside in the cold doing warm-ups, doing drills. So I wait.
But that's a better way to do it, Claire, because you've got your body. You always, for any warm-up, it doesn't matter if it's a run, always do some kind of easier jog and then do the drills, because as you said, your muscles are warmer. like drills, yeah, especially if you're doing drills, they're actually harder. You're going through a larger range of motion than just running. So there's a slightly increased chance of injury with those compared to just running. So that's the perfect way. That would be for a long run, like that someone would do 2 miles, maybe stretch and then go on. Mostly I would just say for a long run, even I wouldn't bother with a warm up. If I was doing, I do think for marathons though, I think people should be on 2 week cycles. They shouldn't just be doing 1 week. And one of so say on Sundays or long run, I'd have just a traditional longer run that you gradually build up. And then the second week, I would do some sort of workout in the long run, but I wouldn't even stretch if you wanted and warm up. But generally what you would do there is maybe do like 40 minutes of easy running and then get into the actual workout, which might be like, say, a mile at marathon pace, a mile steady by 5. So maybe go 5 by 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, and like a mile cool down. And it's just a good way of, especially for a marathon, getting used to doing like marathon pace on like tired legs, like what you're going to have to get used to. So you could stop before that and do a little bit of stretching. But on the Wednesday and on the Saturday, doing a warm up is important. One, as you said, you're going to be increasing the pace compared to normal. So there's an increased chance of injury. And second, we talked before about the importance of variation, that if you're just constantly doing the same like stride, same pace, one, you're not going to get you're very quickly going to like plateau on how much benefit you see because your body gets used to that. And then two, because you're using the same range of motion, you are more predisposed to injury. So by adding some drills and some stretches, at least twice a week, you're kind of stretching your body. You're doing high knees. So you're lifting your knees. Because look around, how often are people, their knees don't even come up because they're going so slow. They're just kind of like, plodding along. It's like their jog pace. So by just lifting your knees for like 20 meters and then doing some like hamstring stretches on the way back and then kicking the heels to your bum while keeping your knees out in front, it's stretching the quads. It's moving more at the hips. Just do side to side. So you like turn to the side and you click your feet together, like kind of like a groin stretch. Do that 12, turn and do another 12. And then just doing like 2 or 3 strides. One, it makes the workout so much easier because again, you've got your breathing right. But 2, the stride would be quicker than the workout you're going to do. And again, that's increased the range of motion. It's caused that activation that we talked about before, got that recruitment going. And it's just a lovely way of like, one, having a better workout, and 2, keeping the body injury free.
Yeah. So I like that because part of it is, like you said, making that particular workout go better, but it's also habit formation. When we do one good thing, if we add something else to it, we're more likely to do both of those things. So, I tell people if you can do a few drills before every run, great, because you can sneak in your lunges, you can do a few, squats, you can do, you're stacking your habits on top of each other. And instead of being like, okay, I've done my run, I need to do a drill session, or I need to do this or that. If you just do a few little things before and sometimes after a run that you're already going to do, you're more likely to do it. You're more likely to adhere to all the little things that we keep telling you to do as coaches.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. There's 2 things to that. It's like if it's snowing outside, you can take a brush every hour and sweep it away, or you can take a shovel if you've left it for a whole day. And it's the same, like I do my sports Pilates, it's 45 minutes a week. That's kind of like the shovel. Like, so if people don't do stuff, it's try to reset. But if you were adding a few lunges or squats or little drills, you're keeping enough variety in there that it's gonna help you. And then if you do have additional like niggles or injuries, you might need to look at something a bit more prescriptive. But it's such a great start to add, as you said, a couple of things in. And secondly, like you said, I have people who ask, is it better to do drills before or after? Or say with Pilates, I just had a client, I did it after my run. I'm like, just do it whenever suits you, because doing it is like 95% of the benefit. Same. So if you, like, when you're in a workout mindset, you might be changing your trainers anyway. it's easier just to be like, oh yeah, I'll just do some strides now before we start. Whereas you said, when you're in a run, you might not be in that headset, but it's still good in a run. We mentioned this before. Maybe just pick it up in a run for like 15 seconds and then drop down your pace. So that's adding zero extra time to your run, but you've added in some strides. They might be slower strides. They mightn't be as great if you're walking backwards, which would be the best. I know you're an advocate for stopping, which is good, and that's the ideal. But at least sometimes I find that people are asking me like, oh, what's the best time to do these? Or what's the ideal drills? And I tell them, and then afterwards it's like, oh, how are you getting on with those strides? And they're like, oh, I just didn't have time to do it that way. And it's like, so they go from, I either want to do 100% or zero. And it's like, there's a lot in the middle. I got some 75% in my exams and I was happy enough, You're not going to get given out to it.
Perfect gets in the way of good, huh?
Yeah, that's such a great way. Perfect gets in the way of good. That's a brilliant way of saying it.
Yeah. So I kind of smiled a little bit earlier when you mentioned static stretching. We talked about this the last time we talked, but I think it's important to bring it up now. So static stretching is when you hold any kind of stretch for longer than really, 2 or 3 seconds. You could be considered a static stretch. So, so many people say, don't static stretch when you're cold. Don't static stretch before a workout. It inhibits performance. The only thing static stretching is good for is flexibility, not mobility. And you kind of have a different take on it. So I would love to hear you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's to a bigger point that like, I have like a PhD, so I do, and I lecture, so I'm into research, but there's such a gap, and obviously then I run at a high enough level myself and do kind of practical stuff. So, but there's such a gap between some of the academics and then some of the practical practitioners that the academics, like if you're doing a study, it has to be very controlled, so it can only be this one thing. But it doesn't replicate real life. So all the studies that looked at saying static stretching before competition is bad, and you hear that everywhere, is based on studies where the person had to, like, say one person didn't static stretch, the other person, now they would do about 30 or 40 in a group, the other person holds a static stretch, touches their toes for like say 2 minutes, stands up, and then just jumps. So they'd be on a force plate and they jump, or they might sprint, but mainly it was a jump. Now, like, you've done a lot of races, Claire, you've done a lot of marathons, you've coached a lot of people. Have you ever, like, on any race or talked to any of your clients and said, you know what, touch your toes for 2 minutes, 2 minutes before the gun goes, stand up, and they're going to go, on your marks, bang?
No. No one's going to do that. It
doesn't happen, because the research looked at that and they just said, oh, the static stretching's bad. People don't read research, or they don't read the methods. So only the headline comes out. I saw another one. Now, I'm a big fan of naps. I know we might have mentioned it before, but it was a thing of like, people who nap are more likely of dying earlier.
I saw that. Yeah.
Absolute garbage. It was like the people, like, it was like people who had disturbed sleep at night, so they weren't sleeping, were more likely to nap. So it's like, it's not the naps that is a disadvantage, is that they're not getting a night's sleep and then they're tired. So it's like, but the headline is don't nap, but that's not it's like get a good night's sleep. It should be the headline. Mm-hmm. So what you should do, we did a study, and there is other studies out there. So what we did was, we did a study where we did static stretching or foam rolling on like areas that are tight. Generally, they're going to be calves and your hips and upper back. They're the 3 areas I would recommend static stretching. Some people could do it, and I only hold for about 10 seconds for each. I do like bent knee, calf stretch, straight knee, calf stretch, hands to my toes for the hamstrings, quads, pulling my knee to my bum, glutes, hip flexors. Then what we did was, so one group did static stretching. So they all did a warm up, like we said, they all did a jog. One group then did static stretching, the other group just kind of stood there. Then they all did the potentiation that we were talking about. They did high knees, bum kicks with like a dynamic stretch back, and then they all did strides. And there was no difference in their sprint performance, and the static stretching group actually jumped higher, not by a lot now, but they actually jumped higher than the non-static stretch people. And again, look, you could argue if you did that again, I think we had about 40 in each group, it might be level, but there was no negative of doing it. And yet this is a good way of making sure, well, and there was a positive, and you could argue that because the hips were moving better, the ankles were moving better, once you activated the muscles, it at least negates the negative effect of static stretching. So it's just a thing of like, just because you hear something, now one, it's like I add static stretching into my routine, and it's a good way to keep some flexibility in there. And it's something I did when I was younger. But it's another thing as well, like you must see this a lot, especially with nutrition, that it's so hard to quantify certain things in the body. Like it's nearly impossible. You need to break it down to like one controllable variable, it's called. It is literally nigh on impossible, because if I sleep more, you sleep less. Well, do we know, say, that the vegan diet did it or did it not? So it's very difficult to sometimes quantify stuff. And when it is done, it can give you very simplistic answers that are not practical. So you always don't just assume when you read something that, oh yeah, well, that's the way we do it. Just question like what works best for you. And there is evidence-based practice for a reason. So, but just always think like, well, I don't find that. And then you could read you read the study and you can see, okay, what way are they doing it? Like that sleep study or like static stretching are just two examples that I came across like recently. But you would see it loads in nutrition as well.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. And, if people are worried about static stretching, do it after the run. Like this is probably not even that important to even argue about, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, as you said, if you find it not helpful, just leave it out. Like I have this with barefoot running. Now I have like orthotics or insoles, but I also do like, say, 10 minutes of barefoot running. Just again, I like it for my feet. And I'd have people beside me running. Oh, but would it be this or would it be that? Or, oh, but I think a structured approach. I was like, look, buddy, take off your shoes, take off your socks, run for 5 minutes barefoot, put your shoes back on. If you feel better, don't overdo it. I always used to keep it at 10 minutes. I was like, but don't overdo it. I had a guy, he's like myself, he's a thinker, but I was like, just take off your shoes. You're going to know in 10 minutes if this is for you or not. So it's just that thing of like, try it again. It's like, I know obviously with the planted runner, I'm sure you have it where people are sometimes asking you about this or that. It's like, here, try this, see if it's for you. Great. If it's not, try something else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, to summarize the whole issue of warming up before races, before hard workouts, what would you say are the top 3 reasons why we should do this?
Injury prevention, physiologically, to get your body prepared for the race or the hard workout. It will just feel a lot easier. And it's called VO2 kinetics, that you're essentially like getting your second wind or open up your lungs. So it's easier for them to go back up to that type of level. And the last thing is injury prevention, physiological, and then that neurological, like your body has gone faster. So the motor units are more recruited.
Perfect. Well, I think that is a great place to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Owen, for coming on The Planted Runner. I love all your insights and your advice, and your proof that it actually works, being an older runner, should we say?
Yeah,
and still getting great success. So I really appreciate having you on the show.
Great. Thanks, Claire. That absolutely flew. So thanks a million. I really appreciate that.
Be sure to check out Owen at Everard Pilates and give him a follow on Facebook and Instagram. And now it's time for the Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. Today's topic is alter ego. Did you know that when Beyonce performs, she does not perform as herself? She has an alter ego that she assumes called Sasha Fierce. Sasha Fierce performs with no fear and complete confidence. This is a technique that you can adopt to your running, especially if your normal personality isn't usually a confident, take-charge fighter to the very end. So use your imagination to really flesh out the personality of a runner that you would like to be. What characteristics does this athlete have? What does this runner do when things get tough? Give your strong, talented, confident runner a name and become the athlete that you want to be next time you toe the line. Like all the mental strength tips that I give, this one isn't something that everyone will resonate with, but it can be transformative for those who really get into it. Thank you so much for listening to the Planted Runner podcast or watching it on YouTube. The ability for me to make this show absolutely depends on the number of listens, downloads, reviews on Apple Podcasts, and ratings on Spotify. So if you've already reviewed, thank you. If not, please take a moment after your run today to give it 5 stars. Another reminder that I will be adjusting the pricing on my custom training plans by the end of the year. So if you have a spring race on the books and want a truly custom plan from me, get yours made soon at theplantedrunner.com/plans. That's theplantedrunner.com/plans. Have a great run today.